Hi, this is Dr. Osborne, founder of Gluten Free Society, and very excited today to be able to discuss some gluten-related information with one of our Board of Advisor members, Dr. Jonathan Tait. Dr. Tait, thanks so much for joining us at Gluten Free Society.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks. Thank you.
Can you elaborate a little bit on your academic and clinical background for our audience?
Whew. You want the long or the short version? I'll try to keep it short. So my primary training, I trained as an osteopathic physician back at Michigan State University, College of Osteopathic Medicine. I went on to do a residency in physical medicine and rehab, which is non-surgical orthopedic care, is what I focused on within that field. And then I went on to do a interventional pain fellowship, learning all kinds of procedures to treat pain, and we'll get into maybe some of that later, how that's changed for me over time. And then did a fellowship in sports medicine, and I've been out in practice 10 years now, focusing on really non-surgical approaches to helping people with orthopedic problems, pain issues, and everything that comes along with that, just not feeling one's best health or vitality anymore.
Yes, one of the things that really drew me to you initially was your book on pain. Can you elaborate a little bit on, why did you decide to write a book, and as a physician, how did you end up going from interventional treatments to really looking at diet and looking at gluten? Can you kind of walk us through that and how that looked for you?
Sure. I think the impetus was frustration. I did 15 years of school and training, and I got out into a practice. I had worked a year for the university. I'm out in Tucson, Arizona, but I worked for the University of Arizona for a year. Got an inside look at what academic medicine was, and I had a different vision of it coming out here as a city of wellness and having great integrative medicine thinkers like Dr. Weil out here. I assumed that would be infused into the culture of how the hospital ran and how we delivered services. But as I dug in that first year out of my training, my first real year in practice, I saw, conventional medicine is basically was conventional medicine. We were treating symptoms. We weren't getting to root cause, and a lot of it just became recycled, anti-inflammatory medication, pain medications, opioid medications. And then we started blocking nerves with, steroids, or we had burned nerves in the spine to help spine pain. We put in spinal cord stimulators and pumps, diffusing medication into one spinal fluid. So pretty invasive stuff. But as I moved on from that into a private practice for a couple of years, I thought, well, this will be different out in the private sector. And it turned out to be, although we had a more comprehensive way to address pain and work with physical therapists and psychologists and people in our practice, which was kind of unique for the time, and a team-based approach, we're still using a lot of the same tools. And I saw those tools really failing many of my patients. They would come back month over month just to get the refills of medications, just to get the next procedure. And I saw their health eroding at the same time. They were coming back with more medical problems. They were gaining more weight. I could see their health, and with that, their quality of life slipping away in the process. And I wanted to do something different, and the real impetus that shoved me out in a totally different trajectory was an injury I had back in 2012, and that really was the launching off point for me going into functional medicine. And I met you shortly thereafter and studied everything I could find and worked with you to figure out how do I do a different version of this in my practice and seek to get to that root cause for patients that are in pain, teach them some lifestyle resets and all facets of their life, and get their body really working for them again to be able to repair, to get out of pain. And so it's a long-winded journey, but combination of factors, really seeing the conventional side and really my own situation that wasn't getting better with some, we'll call it conventional care, and I had to look at it a different way and found my way out the other side of it. And I said, well, that's exactly what I want to do, and help patients, guide them down that path like I did. And that's what I've been doing the last 7 years.
Amazing. So what got you interested at all? I mean, your book was on pain, like diet change in pain. What got you interested, or at least curious about gluten and its relationship to creating chronic inflammatory pain and problems in people?
Yeah, so as I dug into the functional medicine world and really started to study things, and this relationship that I started to see with my own recovery was nutritional impacts in how they could promote inflammation in the body or drastically, and in some cases eliminate it for some of my patients by flipping the switch on some of the things in their diet. And what I learned, it wasn't, of course we know the highly processed foods and plowing sugar and chemicals and stuff into the body were not a great thing. They're not a great thing. And many of my patients were already knowledgeable at that level, but they were eating many, we'll call them healthy foods, things that we grew up with, looking at food pyramids or whatever our resource of, hey, these are the healthy things. This is what we should be eating daily, and we should be putting multiple servings of, grains in our body or dairy or whatever. And what I came to learn, and some of that was, thank you for that, is opening my eyes to the world of gluten and the impact that it has on inflammation in the body. And so as I started deploying those strategies with patients, say, hey, I know your perception is this is healthy, but let's run an experiment in your body. What if we took you off of this for a little bit, and I explained the why behind it, and we let the patient kind of feel the change. Then many of them came back and couldn't believe the dramatic drop-off they had, and just inflammation in their body, their joints, their stiffness, their energy, the way they slept. So it had a much more far-reaching impact for a lot of my patients than simply what they were trying to solve, which was pain.
So they'd come to you for a joint issue or a injury-based type of issue, and you'd converse with them about diet change, and aside from helping them with pain, it helped them with their other constitutional symptoms not even related to it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So wow. So I guess was that work was your kind of impetus for writing The Pain-Free Diet? Is that where that came from originally?
Yeah, yeah. So originally it was I set out to write an easy guide for my patients to say, hey, if this is a completely new concept, how the complexity that we find in functional medicine, I think, keeps some folks from moving forward. So I wanted to just say, how do I take some topics, some things that I've learned on my own journey down the path, and make it simpler for them to understand in a way that you could read it very quickly and start using the information, not have to read a dozen books or go to a dozen conferences, but hey, you could read this in a couple evenings and really just start. And so I wanted to write a simple guide, maybe 20 pages at most, and it ended up turning into a 200-page book.
Always goes deeper than where we begin the process, doesn't it?
Yeah, you know how that goes. I'm sure you had a target page count for your book, and you just want to give more because we know so much, and we just feel obligated to share the knowledge, and then finding that sweet spot where it's enough information without overwhelming somebody, so they could read it and say, hey, I know this system, I can go implement this with some confidence, and then I can keep helping them course correct along the path as they work into it. Because as you know, some people are able to jump in and go kind of whole hog. If I say, we got to do this experiment with gluten or whatever food group it may be for them, we know some people can jump right in and say, great, set it up, I'll do it. And other people, we got to take them through a slower path to get there, because it is changing for some of them 20, 30, 40, 50 years of how they were programmed to eat. And now we're challenging that. So it's been a fun experience to help people see that and have those light bulb moments, or the most gratifying, I think, like you probably feel, is when somebody comes back and says, that was a bit of a challenge, but man, I feel so much better. I would never go back to doing the other way now. And that's awesome.
That is awesome. Tell me a little bit about your experience. I know you do a lot of regenerative medicine procedures with stem cells and other things in your private practice. Can you kind of, for our audience who largely made up of people who understand the impetus of how gluten can create inflammation. Can you share your experience with those people coming to you who get, for example, stem cells to overcome a chronic joint issue that are changing their diet more toward a gluten grain-free base versus those that aren't, and the outcomes that you've seen in those two different scenarios with your patients?
So yeah, I'll give you a great case example. I had a woman probably about a year back now. She came to see me specifically for regenerative medicine because my practice is unique in that I'm working with the functional medicine foundation to get people's health, the balance and the systems of their body back in balance, the nutrition where it needs to be, taking down the inflammation like we were talking about as the preparatory work, so that if we were to do a procedure like this where we can now, with the technology we have in 2020, very easily take cells from your own body and put them into the spots where your body has aged a little bit faster. So maybe it's an arthritic knee, or maybe it's a rotator cuff injury where you've partially torn a tendon, and the option is we'll get a surgical replacement of your joint or get a reconstruction of your shoulder. In some cases, many people are left in that middle space where they're actually too young to get a replacement because it won't last, or they're not a surgical candidate for the shoulder because it's a partial tear situation, and the surgeons don't want to operate those patients. So then the patient's left in that middle space for some of them years before they even meet me, that they've been suffering or on the other side of the fence taking pain medications to just Band-Aid and manage the symptoms. So this woman came in to see me specifically because she had done her own research, found stem cells. She said, man, I know I have arthritic knees. This is what I need. I don't want surgery. I don't want meds. I don't want that other stuff. And this is, man, I found you. This is the exact practice for me. So I started working into my consultation with her and asking her a bunch of questions about just her lifestyle, her nutrition, and some other things. And just so many other things were coming up in that review of just, brain fog and general fatigue in her body, and just feeling like more than focally at her knees, there was just so much more. She was having difficulty losing weight despite really working literally her tail off to do it. And so she had no workup at that point. So the first thing we did basically is get x-rays, which we do in orthopedics, say, well, let's look at the structure of your knee joints. And the structure of her knee joints looked fine. She had no arthritis based on the radiographs, the x-rays. So what it told me is this lady had massive inflammatory response in her knees because she was working out vigorously, trying to lose weight. She was doing a lot of impact activity, and her knees were just unbelievably inflamed, but they were not arthritic. So we took her down the functional medicine path, and we got some labs, and we figured out some things. And one of the things we did do in her case was take her off gluten entirely. That was all grains. We wiped them out for a reset of 30 days. And in 30 days, this woman's knee pain basically went to zero. So had she walked into another clinic, maybe they would have just said, hey, Mrs. Jones, it looks like you need some stem cells in your knees, and I'm glad you came to us. Let's shoot them in there. But I'm convinced if they had done that, it wouldn't have worked for her because we didn't address the real root cause, which was systemic inflammation in her body. So we never ended up doing stem cells. She went on to do well, maintained, that situation with her pain, relatively nothing at that point after we got her addressed. She lost weight, her energy came back, all these other, we'll call them, we talk about side effects and medications, but these are side benefits. So all these side benefits that we weren't even targeting got better in the process. So I think that's really I have examples of so many patients like that where, they're looking for the solution in her case, and we didn't even really have to go there, or the solution she thought was the solution for her problem, what in fact wasn't at all.
That's wonderful. On that note of somebody with, let's just say that like this patient with the chronic knee pain, one of the things that I personally have people tell me is they come from their orthopedist, they're told they have bone on bone, fill in the joint blank, right, whatever the joint is. They're told they have bone on bone and that their only option at this point is surgery. I get back an x-ray and look at it, and it's not really bone on bone. It's certainly a diminished joint space, and there's arthritis there. But diet change, at least in my experience, has been profound in impacting those types of individuals who have been told surgery is their only route. Do you see quite a bit of that as well, where there are actually arthritic changes to the joint, bones or joint space narrowing, where people still are able to make a full recovery and retain normal function of their joints?
Absolutely, yeah. So that woman's case was an example of somebody that really didn't have any X-ray findings of arthritis. But the norm is, sure, what you laid out there is somebody comes in, they've already been seen elsewhere, they told they have a certain grade of arthritis, from 1 through 4, and 4 being the worst. And some patients come walking in with grade 4 arthritis, and they've gone through all the conventional treatments, and we take them down this path. And I have the ability to kind of do these combination treatments where I really work on the functional medicine side, we really work on the nutritional kind of recalibration, because what's lost, and I trained as an orthopedist, a non-surgical orthopedic doctor, and the focus or the hyper focus is on the anatomy. We put up an X-ray and we look at the space, and that's it. The whole assessment is just that. Yeah, we examine the patient, but we look at the X-ray and we say, look at that anatomy. You got bad anatomy. But what's not addressed, what I see is the missing link or gap, and why we find so much success in our patients is actually working on the physiology. Because there is an inflammatory, I describe it to my patients, it's not just a simple grinding, wear and tear of the joint. It becomes a chemical process where the joint is eroding. It's like acid in the joint chewing away at the structure, the cells of the joint, and breaking down that cartilage. It's this inflammatory environment. And we can shift that dramatically with these diet changes, and gluten being a huge factor for people in this. So working on that physiology, I think, is so important. And I know from my training, it was never taught to us to look at it. It's all through my journey of the last 7-8 years learning this stuff. But it makes such a huge shift, and it just makes sense that if we can settle down that inflammation, that chemical breakdown of that joint, the patient now has the ability, those cells have the ability without that chaos in there to bounce back, because the default of our body is actually to regenerate. Even though people may not feel like that as they age, the default is to regenerate. These cells are constantly turning over, but if half of your cells or half of your energy, if we want to think about it in a concept like that, half your energy is being diverted to control the chaos in your joint. But man, if we can clear up that chaos, now the energy goes into repairing the joint, and your body can take over and start to do that. And should they not get where they want to go, that's when I have the ability, with the other side of my practice, doing these orthobiologic cellular treatments to put cells in there that really can powerfully nudge that body to heal.
Amazing. Well, Dr. Tait, I really appreciate not only your time, but your expertise and experience, and your courage for moving away from the standard of care to where science took you and where actual results took you to help improve the lives of your patients and so many other people in the world who have come across your book, The No Pain Diet, and benefited from your message and from your work. So again, thank you so much for being part of our advisory board here at Gluten Free Society, and thank you for all you've done to help people find real solutions.
Well, thank you. It's my honor to be part of this, and growing just public awareness, we know, is shifting towards where we want to see people go. This is not, quote, alternative medicine. This is medicine, right? This is the medicine that gets people the results, and so many people are seeking the root cause and the result. And they're really tired of the Band-Aid treatment. So we know this as practitioners in this space, that this is where the medical system at large needs to go. And the hope is that getting more like-minded people together and binding together in this approach can help more people find that solution. That's what I'm all about in my practice. So just honored to be part of this.
Well, thank you so much. It was wonderful interviewing you today, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. And again, thank you for all you do.